Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Avatamsaka Sutra lecture. As you can see, Marty's not here with us today, so Jingwei Sure and myself will be still leading tonight's lecture, and Marty will be back next week. And so just to continue on with our theme last week, we talked about praises, because the section we're on is Manjushri Bodhisattva, actually many Manjushri Bodhisattvas, praising the Buddha. And we said how praise actually is a very profound practice. It directs our attention. And here Manjushri Bodhisattva is directing our attention to the Buddha's qualities. And you could say the Buddha is not just outside, right? If we're cultivating the Dharma, the Buddha is inside. Or you could say it's not inside either, it's not inside or outside. But it's actually our true nature. And so one way we can see it is Manjushri is asking us to look at the Buddha in a certain way and to admire that, but also perhaps to look at ourselves, our own experience in a certain way, and to really investigate, explore that place. So we're going to read the next two verses in Chinese and English, and then from there we can kind of give a little bit of explanation in terms of what really is the Buddha praising here, or Manjushri Bodhisattva praising here about the Buddha, and how does it relate to our actual experience? How do we find that place in our own hearts and minds? Okay, so I invite everyone, if you should have the text on the screen, put your palms together. 诸佛如虚空，究竟常清净，一念生欢喜，彼主愿具足。一一地狱中，今欲无量劫，唯度众生故，二能忍世苦。All Buddhas are like empty space, ultimately and eternally pure. Be always remembering to bring forth happiness. All of one's vows are completed. Within each hell, one passes through limitless kalpas. In order to cross over living beings, one can endure all that suffering.
So, good to back here on this seat, and together we will investigate the verses of the Avatamsaka Sutra, and especially what kind of I was reflecting on, and this concept, the metaphor, the all Buddhas like an empty space. Say, what really does it mean? What the qualities of the Buddha are described here? How we can relate to that? And is it far away from our experience? Is how it related, like the verse refer later, to happiness? I want to begin with the interesting experience that I had quite many years ago. Remember, I was reading an article written by Ajahn Sumedho when he described that his experience with this space, with this emptiness. And he says there that very often what's happened to us when we, for instance, enter to the room, what we can see, it's walls, the floor, or some maybe furnitures, maybe carpets, and different objects. But very often what we missed is the space. And I heard that, wow, so many years I'm here in this planet, I never thinking about it, that in the room when I'm sitting is the space, and I even can kind of contemplate that. kind of open up something, some new horizon for me. And so Genazet, in order to notice the space, what we need to do. Of course, we can shift our attention from these different objects and put them in the space. Those objects could be somehow attractive and maybe are disgusting, have different qualities, right? And some of them are like, some are not. But it's when we hold our awareness and kind of see them through the space, we can kind of let them be as they are. Let them be and be expressed in different form. We have the space to kind of uphold them and not be affected by them. I was like, wow, I think this is another perspective that we can see things through this experience of the space. And I was like, wow, very interesting. I see I have a new approach that I can have, a new relationship to the space itself. What I mentioned used to miss it. And so we can say the space is everywhere, right? It's here in this Buddha hall, when we are right now. And the space is, actually the whole monastery is held in the space. It's the huge space with around the whole world. And the space doesn't have any limits. The space is always present, always. If we pay attention to it, we can see, it's the space. The space not belongs to me, probably don't belongs to Jin Chuanshi, or any of you, although we share the space, right, to some ways. And I very like the illustration of the space as a metaphor for the mind or our essential nature given by Sixth Patriarch in the Platform Sutra, that he says, good and wise friends, the emptiness of the physical universe can embrace the shapes and forms of the myriad things, the sun, moon, and stars, the mountains, rivers, and the whole earth, the fountains, spring streams, and the torrents, the grasses, trees, thickets, and woods, good and bad people, and good and bad dharmas, the heavens and the hells, and the great seas, and the entire of Mount Sumeru, and all mountains. Empty space contains them all. The empty space of people's nature is the same. Good and wise friends, our own essential nature is able to contain the 10,000 things. That is great. The myriad dharmas, absolutely everything, or within the nature of all people. If we can regard all people, the bad as well as the good, without grasping or rejecting, free of any clinging, your mind will be like empty space. Thus it can be called great, Maha. You can see this like very poetic description of awakened, liberated mind, free from any abstractions, with no limits. Mind does not hold anything, and the same can contain everything. It's like empty space, right? Everything belongs. Those attractive, what is attractive, or those is maybe ugly to some extent, in the space. Space is home for everyone. It's described as kind of unmoved mind, and the mind of the Buddha, definitely. And it's like this is our potential. So this experience is described as kind of experience of very profound equanimity. So do we can experience it? how it is relate to us. What is our relationship with the space? Can noticing the space actually change us? And it's kind of hold the question. And we can see the space between, for instance, between yourself and the screen that you observe. We can see the space between words. We formulate the one thought, and before the next thought arises, if we are very calm, we can maybe notice some subtle, small space. In the written space, the written texts is a lot of space. And I very like the Mr. Rogers sharing. One time he says in an interview, the interviewer asked him about his recent book, and he says that this book is about being. It's about things that matters to me. It's about the white spaces between the paragraphs, that I think are more important than any of the text, because they allow you to think what's just being said. He says later that I had a professor one time, and he mentioned about the page where it is William Orr, and he said, you know, Fred, there is one thing that evil cannot stand, and that is forgiveness. And he says, and you notice that the rest of the page is blank. It needs a lot of time to think about it. So it's kind of interesting expression. The space is also giving us room for contemplation, and the room for deep reflection. So,
add something? So,
yeah, please.
I think that sense of space is actually very close to us, especially if we meditate. Right, as you were just meditating right beforehand, if you're using your meditation method and you're observing your awareness is observing what's rising and falling, you'll see there's actually a spaciousness there. So it's very, very close to our experience. It's not something that's so abstract. And I think as we deepen in our practice, we find that space becomes more expansive. And with that expansiveness gives us a kind of more freedom, a kind of an ability to respond to situations with wisdom or with choice, with clarity, rather than just habituation. I think in our society we really emphasize activity, right? The things, the objects, the getting things done. And the space, the emptiness, is sometimes seen as a waste, a kind of a waste of time, waste of money, waste of space, right? Fill everything up. And so you can have similar in a situation in a book. And what do? You fill up the whole page as much as possible because you don't want to waste any space. Or if you're trying to give a talk, you try to talk as fast as possible because you want to give as much content as possible. But you don't let the silence allow people to reflect. And so that a sense of space, I think, is not too far away from our experience. It's here, it says it's empty space. It's like, gosh, it seems very abstract. But actually, if we say, well, look at the Buddhas are just like the space between my thoughts. And if we start to reflect in that place, how expansive is that? Is it that our thoughts surround the space in our minds? Or is it the space that surrounds the thoughts? And imagine if the Buddhas are like that. The Buddha is everywhere. You can think of the empty space around us, right? Then you can think of the empty space that's within our experience, thought by thought. The Buddha's there too. I remember one, I believe it was in the 8th ground Bodhisattva text. Reverend Heng Sure was lecturing, and there was one line that completely, I would say, made me really reflect. like what Jing Wei Shi said. And it said the bodhisattva can transform into many things, right? We often read about the bodhisattvas transforming into a monk or a nun or a layman or a laywoman or a god, or in the lower realms, wherever is needed. But it's then the bodhisattva can transform into empty space. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought about that the space, as Jing Wei Shi was just talking about, that we just kind of take for granted, don't really pay attention to, that could actually be a bodhisattva if we really had the eyes to see. So I just thought, let me just add a few reflections.
Great. This is very inspiring what you says, and it's sometimes this space, because we have a habit to try to mention, to fill with the content. If we don't see content, it becomes sometimes a very scary place. It's like, I need to do it something, right? I have to take a phone, I have to read, listen, to fill out the space as fast as possible, because it's kind of become unfamiliar kind of no-land that I don't know how to refer to. But Ajahn Chua says we can experience that, especially when we meditate. Is the place when we can trust, be in this space, and kind of, although I think, kind of relax into it. Can this new ability to learn how to be with this space and kind of appreciate. This is not so much content, it's great. I can rest. Yeah. And so I want to just share one story. So one question that we asked is that how really seeing the space can change us, or how can transform us kind of deeply to noticing the space. And I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We have a guest speaker here it was a Thursday Berkeley Insight Meditation group. Well, before pandemic, every Thursday have a Dharma event. The one teacher came from Australia, and it gave a very profound speech that quite touched me, and for a few days actually I was kind of still reflecting what she says. And she mentioned about this kind of, about her grief, also the power of forgiveness, and there's some context about the space. So she says that she had a daughter. She very loved, of course, her daughter. Was very close to her. And the daughter moved from one city to Melbourne, and she began her study in the university. After a while, she met one guy, then fell in love. And unfortunately, the guy was a drug dealer and heroin addict. And finally, the girl, her daughter, once tried the heroin. It was the first time, and it was the last time. She overdosed and passed away. And of course, the mother realized that what's happened. It was like completely collapsed, she says. Was in deep despair. It's kind of reached the bottom of the hell, of the suffering. She lost someone who was one of the most important person in her life. And she says it was like so difficult to bear, so difficult. And she decided to flew to Melbourne and went to the police stations and was very angry, told to all the policemen, you failed your job, you failed your responsibility. why you don't protect all these children on the streets? You know what's happened? How many people is dying from the drugs? You know, she tried to find the guy who was the boyfriend of her daughter. She couldn't. She even find address, his home. Anytime she was there, he never showed up. She says, I don't know what I can do to him if I can meet him. I can even kill him. I was so driven by anger. And so after a while, she returned to her home, and just, I don't know how long it takes to her to be in this kind of very difficult state. And maybe 6 months or 1 year later, she was saying, it was kind of a very shifting moment. She was saying, sitting on the porch of her house. She says it was very quiet night, of the bright sky with unclouded, shining moon, and she was just sitting, surrounded by a vast space, and some inside her says, enough. This is enough. This can't lead me anywhere. I need to do something. And she says it's something shift in her, something click in her. She says that I noticed that I have so wonderful time with my daughter. I have 18 years of wonderful relationship. Great memories. Nobody can take from me these memories. She says it's kind of something shift in her from this anger to the gratitude. And she didn't mention exactly that this experience of being exposed to this huge empty space was the main factor what changed her, but definitely I think something was important there that give her a different perspective, how she relate to her state, her experience. It allows to extend her consciousness, perhaps, in this vastness of this space. The anger just can slowly dissolve. It was a space to let go. And she's even written the book about this experience, and striving and try to tell the people that even we lost someone who is very close to us, we have a choice. And I think that being in this spacious mind, we can notice the choice much more easier. We see the choice. Without a space, sometimes these emotions would arise completely closed. Anything. So it's quite powerful.
Maybe just
yeah, please.
Just to reflect on that story with the passage that Jing Wei should just shared from the Sixth Patriarch Sutra. In the Sixth Patriarch Sutra, Great Master Huineng was talking about how our minds are like empty space. They can both hold the good and the bad. So I think it was really interesting with that story, there was the quote-unquote bad, the death of the daughter, right? The death of someone she deeply cared about. But we can connect with our own experience. I mean, many of us have had experiences which brought us deep pain. And so there's that experience. And there's also experiences of great joy and happiness, right? She talked about her memories of her daughter and her gratitude to be able to have those experiences. But then we have another option in terms of how we hold our attention, which is empty space, which holds both of those experiences without attachment. So it's very interesting in terms of our Dharma practice, is that there's not to say right or wrong, good or bad. It's actually more interesting to say, let me investigate these places. If I attend to the places of pain and suffering in a particular way, where does that lead me? When Jing Weishu was sharing the story with me before, he said that she said, you know, if I follow this thought and this resentment, this hatred, it's endless. It just will go on and on. It will never end. And so reflecting that emptiness in that open space, you could see, wow, this hatred will never end. And then she was able, from that place, then also reflect on her experience. You know what, I have so much to be grateful for. And she didn't choose to abide in emptiness, which you could. You know, if you were a meditator and you wanted to, you could just say, I'm going to abide in the open spaciousness of the mind. She went to gratitude, which isn't bad for sure. Gratitude is a very wholesome emotion, which gives, I would say, a kind of deep ground. And in fact, I think it imbues the openness of the mind and the heart with a kind of emotional tone of deep appreciation, which then actually opens the heart even more.
Right.
But it's interesting, I just wanted to point to that sutra passage. If we apply it to that story, you can begin to see the nuances about how we can pay attention to our experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in many ways another story of the space I mentioned to Jin Chuan Sure a little bit talk about is when it's kind of came out all these memories. It was the time when I was in 108 days, the kind of final training before receiving the full precepts before the ordination. So all of our monks stay in the Tathagata monastery in the city of 10,000 Buddhas, and it's quite intensive time. Study the sutras and many classes, meditation, bowing in the morning. Any actually moment is filled out with some dharma, what is great, but sometimes we don't have so much space in our minds to contain it. And you know, and of course I was sometimes tired, and it's like, oh gosh, it's so.
Not just sometimes, probably all the time.
Oh, probably all the time. Probably not
like,
sometimes, all the time. I have to make it another day.
Yeah, I'll fall asleep. What?
Yeah, and I can fall asleep any moment when you're bowing. Someone kind of touch you. It's time to get up. Okay. And I remember it was. I have a very reliable, very good friend for me, and I even don't consider as a friend at the time. It was a huge space.
Oh.
And a huge, if you are in the city of 10,000 Buddhas, especially in the night, you can see this, wow, it's quite an experience to see all the stars are shining. And if it's the full of moon, you can almost touch the moon. It's since it's so close. And I remember any time from the Buddha hall, I kind of return to Tathagata monastery. It's like maybe 7 minutes walk.
Yeah.
And I just look at on the sky. Fortunately, in California, it's not often the sky is clouded. I just look at on this kind of vast space. And I think, Qin Xian at the time, I was Qin Xian Sure. You're this small dot in this huge universe. And your problems are very small, really, compared to this vastness of space. It's kind of relief, and kind of allows me to relax. And it's like, wow, it's great. Everything is okay. Just back to room, fall asleep in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And next day start again.
3:30.
And again I can meet this huge space, kind of remind me that I can let go. Everything is okay. So maybe we can meet a Buddha even in the empty space.
Yeah, I definitely had the same experience. Coming back very tired. It's really cool too. So it keeps you kind of a little bit awake, and then you kind of look up at the sky. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Clear skies. And CVB has at night, because all the, I don't probably save electricity. Then the lamps generally, a lot of them are off, so it's pretty dark.
Right.
So you have to be careful where you walk, and then you just get the night sky, and you just kind of, oh, wow. And everything's very quiet too.
Super quiet.
So it's quiet, it's a little cool, so you're a little bit alert, and then the sky is just, yeah.
So the question is, how from this vast, huge space, happiness can
arise.
Have arise.
The next one, it says, so all Buddhas are like empty space, ultimately and eternally pure. I think for their pure, I find whenever I see that, I kind of translate into they're completely unattached, unattached to them, to their point of view, unattached to a self, unattached to, emotions, desires, thoughts, completely free. That when I see that we're pure, because sometimes it's tricky because we see pure and we read it as like I'm pure and they're not pure, and that's like the going the wrong direction. Purity is not about me being pure and they're being not pure. The Buddhas are pure and all these living beings are impure. It's actually the mind that doesn't attach to anything. That's the pure, and that's why it's empty space. Empty space doesn't hold on to anything. Anything can come into empty space and just go through it. No attachment. And in that spaciousness, what happens? The Buddha always remembers to bring forth happiness. Now, I don't know if the translation is a little bit tricky in terms of bring forth. I would say is always happy. The Buddha is always happy. Right? So in this vastness of space, the Buddha is always happy. And all of his vows are fulfilled. He says complete are fulfilled. And so I think that's actually really interesting. We talked a little bit before about emptiness, and oftentimes in our society, emptiness is kind of scary. We usually try to fill up emptiness. In that feeling of emptiness, we can feel lonely, we can feel scared, we can feel anxiety, kind of meaninglessness, nothingness. Sometimes kind of becomes this kind of nihilism, right? We have that kind of sense that empty space is maybe a little bit scary. And a lot of our society is kind of trying to run away from that empty space. So we have our cell phones, right? There's some kind of emptiness in our space, and what we do, we turn on our cell phone to check our email, check out some app, maybe play some video games, right? You immediately fill up that empty space with something. And there's an interesting point here, is because, at least in my experience, what that often connects to is because we feel a deep kind of lacking. We feel empty inside, and there's a different kind of empty space. We feel actually empty, like we're not enough. We need something else to make us feel okay. And so then we have to always go outside looking. And if there's empty space, that's a little bit scary, because that might remind us of our deep emptiness inside. And so we get very scared.
Yeah, I remember sometimes, and nowadays probably, go to the forest just without anything become very scary place, because it's kind of silence. And I notice that sometimes even people are playing music in the forest or in the kind of empty, very quiet spaces, because it's difficult to hold it, right? We are not teach anymore how to stay in silence, right? We need to feel out.
Yeah, I was definitely like that when I was, growing up, teenager. And you'd always play some music in the background, and always have, the TV on. If I'm home and by myself, it's a little bit scary, so I turn on the TV. Even if I'm not watching it, I just have the TV going, and I feel like, I have company or something. And it's interesting. And I found after I lived in the monastery for a while, where you get kind of used to just there being a lot of silence, that when I went to the home, this is when I was a layman, I was quite struck at how much ambient sound was in the background. Just the TV was on, even if no one's really watching. There's this noise going on over here, there's this going on over there. It's just not so much space.
Yeah.
And so what I think here is very interesting is we're getting presented a very different way of coming at empty space. And that place is different because of, you could say it's an underlying assumption, but I think it's something deep for us to reflect upon. To say, what if we didn't lack anything? What if we were actually whole and complete to begin with? That by letting go of all the things that we think we need to have, what we discover is our fullness of our nature, a deep contentment, a deep happiness, gratitude, right? The fullness of life. They often say true emptiness, wonderful existence.
And what is kind of irony of it, that it's always there.
It's always there.
Same like
yeah.
empty space.
Yeah.
It's always with us. It's not like that we have to get it from someone else, that we can download,
Mm-hmm.
or when we meditate enough hard, something, boom, come to us and we can be full of this wonderful state. No, this is who we are. This is our true home, we can say.
Yeah. And so I think this text here basically saying the Buddha is always there, always remembers that place, right? Always is in tune with his fullness of his nature, fullness of her nature, or just beyond gender, fullness of our nature, right? And that can seem a little bit like, wow, that's pretty far out. So then how does that actually relate to our experience? I know Jingwei wouldn't share your I think your friend just asked Jingwei about.
Actually today, my kind of good friend, calling sometime from time to time to me, he called me brother.
Brother.
So we spent a lot of time as a kind of teens, try to figure it out, what really means to be in this world, and kind of a little bit confused, searching different things. And he asked me directly, "Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Are you happy? Please tell me, truly, are you happy there?" And it's, depends how you define.
Well, first ask if somebody asked you that, well, how would you respond?
How you respond?
Yeah. Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Somebody asked you directly, are you happy? Are you really happy? Can you please tell me? Really? Are you really happy?
Are you really happy? And from the kind of bottom of your heart, what we could be answer?
Good question.
Is a good kwato to keep.
Yeah.
Am I happy? And I got to reflect, I told to him, I cannot tell you that I am here, I am him in this kind of place of constant happiness, of wonderful fireworks all the time, and I'm just dwelling on the bliss every breath. Actually not. But I kind of reflecting a moment, I says, but I think I found a very deep purpose of my existence. I can find these moments of happiness, of being the service to others. They're very small ones. They're nothing huge. Small of kind of witnessing of small transformations of others, or just I give a hand sometimes to someone, and fortunately we have a chance to, from time to time, kind of be in the places or circumstances that we can be in service in the Dharma, do the ceremonies. You can find this kind of small places of happiness. And I mentioned to him that I'm trying to find the happiness in the smallest places, with some before I miss them. Usually I searching for this huge bomb of happiness, and I can't notice that this happiness maybe is available in the next breath, when I can just relax. If it's the tension there, relax. Okay, it's kind of a small relief. I can be there and just be okay. Everything is okay, and moment by moment, I can just be aware and present, and just with this kind of relaxed heart, do my best, try my best. And I think this is ultimately a very happy place to be.
And we have a fun video. I don't know, will it work, Knock?
Yeah, we can try.
We can try. So we have our authority, Doug Powers, who's going to tell you that happiness is your natural state.
Exactly.
You can see if you believe him or not, but we have a video which he makes it very clear that happiness is your natural state.
Guy's persuasive, he's very, very direct.
Very Doug. And somebody, one of the DRBU students who does animation, made an animation out of it. So anytime you're ready, Locke, you can play it. It was actually a lot of fun. So you can
Cultivation is not cultivating a dead mind. It is cultivating a totally alive and aware mind that isn't controlled by habituation. And then the spontaneous, happy, contented, active awareness will arise. It's already there, but being covered by all this affliction and all this fear and all this stuff, and I wish I had that, and all this lacking and all this ridiculous stuff that's just bogging you down. So when that stuff's not bogging you down, then what's behind it is happiness. This is the natural state. Happiness is the natural state. This kind of happiness, this kind of contentment, this kind of bliss, this kind of elation, this is your natural state. You're just messing it up. Okay?
Got it, Doug. Got it. Okay, hopefully that worked.
Remember, this is your natural state.
Happiness is your natural state, yeah.
Happiness is natural state. You just mess up.
You just messed it up.
If you don't feel it.
Anyway, so that's Doug for you. Also, when we were talking, I was also reflecting a little bit about this topic, and Jingwei Sure reminded me of a story, which I thought, okay, it might be interesting to share as well. It was right before I became a trainee that I joined the monastery. And it was, I would say it was a kind of a very strong contrast for me because right before I left home, the time was maybe 28, 29-ish. And my younger brother, had just graduated from MIT. And so I went with my family to the East Coast. I think we were in New York, and just kind of waiting there. And then we're going to go to my brother's graduation. Well, my mom and dad had a family friend whose son had become extremely successful, like one of the, probably the most successful people that you could imagine. And he was throwing a party for like a book opening. And the parents said, "Do you want to come?" And
it's like a Mara invitation, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I actually asked my family, my mom and my dad, right? And they said, okay, yeah, we were happy to come. And so I said, okay, yeah, I'm happy to go along. I'm here in New York. We're in this little kind of an airy place. I think we're staying in our relatives, my aunt's place at the time. So we went to this party. I remember it was late at night in this kind of hotel. And wow, I've never been to a more elaborate party in my entire life. It's like, this is like New York City, right? The kind of hub of America in a certain sense. And it's like a very fancy hotel. And it was like the whole floor, was like for this party. And it was like, free, expensive alcohol, and like everything that you can imagine. I was just like, wow. It was really kind of an interesting contrast because I was, probably the next month, let's see, that was like maybe in a couple of months, I was actually joining the monastery. And I'm going to go into TM, like Jingwei Sure said. And definitely you don't have any alcohol there, and it's usually very cold. And you don't have all these sense pleasures available.
We have empty space.
You have a lot of empty space. You can say that. There's a lot of empty space. It's very quiet. Yeah. Where the monks live is actually where they kept the. I don't know if people know, but City 10,000 Buddhists used to be a mental asylum, a hospital for those who were, had kind of mental difficulties, and so there were many patients there, and TM, Tathagata Monastery, that building is built like a fortress. The walls are like this thick with chicken wire in them, so people can't escape from them. And the reason was because that's where they kept the criminally insane. So the monks are living where they kept the criminally insane.
Perfect place for monks.
Perfect place for monks, yeah. I would like to joke that CDDB is still a mental hospital. It's just that the people are willing to stay. Right, they're not kept against their will. So anyways, I remember at this party, and I was just reflecting. I was just kind of going, wow, it's really interesting that I actually don't have any interest in what's going on. It's just not interesting. It was kind of, a lot of music, a lot of things going on, and I was just kind of like, I'm just much more content just to kind of dwell in my awareness, just to kind of relax in the kind of awareness and just let all the dharmas arise and go, this is interesting. Okay, this is interesting, and it was interesting to me because I know that's in the world kind of like you made it, right? You're able to throw a huge party, inviting all these people, full, I don't know how much it would cost, but that's happiness oftentimes in what we're told in society. Happiness is being able to really enjoy our lives through our senses fully, But here in the Dharma, we're looking, there's actually a place of happiness that doesn't rely on sensual stimulation. There's a kind of deeper place of well-being. And I don't know, it was just that contrast for me. It was just so striking. And after the party, I went back, and it was just like another kind of passing phenomenon. I was like, that was a very interesting experience. And it's very interesting. I just went to that right before I was going to join the monastery, because I could see I don't know if that's really where I would want to go. And I think in the Dharma, and this one I'm extremely grateful for, was that I had opportunity to meet the Dharma. So I could see that there was a place of happiness that was deeper than the kind of transitory success that the world was putting in front of me. I mean, that's actually why I got interested in the Dharma, was because when I was growing up in the Bay Area, these are people who are, by society standards, very successful. But you could say, actually kind of did ask a number of people that question, like my parents, friends, and others, like, are you really happy? Right? Are you really happy? And often the answer I got was, we're just getting through day by day, just kind of paying the bills, getting through day by day. And there seemed to be almost a kind of a constant, like, rat race going on.
Mm.
And I was like, is that what I'm trying to do with my life? Just to join that kind of endless rat race? Just kind of seeking some kind of success. But it seems like the people who are the most successful people, that I might even be that successful, and they don't seem very happy. There's something doesn't seem quite right here. And so that's actually what propelled me in looking into a deeper place of well-being. And I think here the sutra is telling us, actually, the Buddha is not praising money, not praising elaborate parties, not praising, sense gratification. What's he praising? He's praising empty space. Like, empty space? Like, how many times, where do you hear that in the world? Usually not. But you come to the Dharma and you say, well, you know what? Let's praise empty space. And let's praise this the purity of heart that's completely unattached. We don't hear that anywhere else. And then it says, and we always have happiness. we remember we're always actually happy. We lack nothing. We don't get that message either in society. Usually we get the message, you don't have enough, buy my product, right? Because capitalism would fall apart if people were told, you know what, you're actually completely happy, you don't have to buy my product. We just want you to be happy. And so don't worry about whatever I'm trying to sell, you just be happy. I just want to support your happiness in the deepest possible way. All the stuff I'm trying to sell you, that's just all a distraction from that place. How about I try to help you simplify your life?
Yeah, let's let go of all this stuff.
Let go of all this stuff. Yeah,
we need it.
We don't need it. We could just be happy, sitting around, meditating, having good friendship,
And what Jinchuan is saying, for me, this is kind of a very interesting place to be in the monastery. Because you see, usually in the monastery, you don't have so many staff that you potentially can get this kind of worldly happiness. Right, and we have precepts, right? No entertainment.
No entertainment, yeah.
And 1 meal a day, and there are some limitations in terms of our impulses. But it's kind of interesting also in the monastery. Actually, I found that one of the most happy people I've ever met. It's kind of irony, with this almost having nothing, but it's some kind of joy, like Doug says, spontaneity. And I think this in the senior disciples. We have a chance just talked with one of.
Let me add one thing real quick. Actually,
Yes.
the Jinweshi just talked about eating 1 meal a day and not having entertainment. So one way to look at that is, gosh, monks were really missing out. You don't have any entertainment. You don't have can't eat whatever you want. But if you look at it from another angle, from this sutra about empty space, what does that do? It creates empty space. Right? So if we only eat 1 meal a day, wow, all that time that went into preparing food and eating and digesting becomes open space.
Mm-hmm.
You let go of entertainment, whoa,
So
in
much
your
time.
mind you have a lot more space, right? So it's just pointing that there's this principle here that you're clearing out space, and if you can find deep joy in that space, there's how would I describe it? A kind of openness, a kind of contentment,
Right.
a kind of settledness, a peacefulness. So this sutra is pointing us to that place.
And Jinchuan mentioned, and it's kind of simplifying and create more and more space, and it's more space to just being, or I was saying just then doing, right? And it can be more comfortable and learn, have more confidence to just stay with this simplicity, with emptiness, and I find is a lot of source of to be grateful, and it's a wonderful place to be. And anytime the empty space can remind us that we have a choice, we have a freedom to choose.
And empty space is completely equal. We all have empty space, right?
Right.
King Wisher said no one owns empty space. You have empty space in between every single one of your thoughts, right? In this room, there's empty space. It's not too far away. But you want to tell the story about the senior disciple.
Maybe next time.
Maybe tell that one. I think maybe a couple of minutes. I think okay.
Okay. So we have recently a chance to speak to one of the senior disciples, Helen Wu, who was one of the. When she took refuge with Master Hua, I think the early time, right?
Yeah.
The early 70s. It was very struck us. She's like a very kind of hardcore cultivator.
Yeah, very hardcore.
Like she says, for 35 years, I didn't miss a single day of bowing. And her main practice become a bowing. Every day she repent and renew. And what is of course a lot to say about her and how she devote her life to service, to support the Sangha, to support DRBA in many different ways. But where it struck us, she's tomorrow, on Monday, she'll turn 85.
85, yeah.
Is how much she has a vigor, and just, I am so happy. I'm very, very happy. And she repeated this, I don't know how many times.
Yeah, you do a lot.
And she really meant it. It's not
Yeah.
like this, I'm happy. No, I found the Dharma, the proper Dharma, the Master Hua. Any afflictions you sometimes experience compared to the blessing what we have to study Dharma is just nothing. It's just nothing. I'm so happy,
It's like, whoa.
Wow. This is definitely some clear message.
Just
anytime you wake up, just try your best. Try your best. She says we have some lay people. You are lay people because monastic you have some schedule, so you have more opportunity to practice. But please set up some place of practice. It could be 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever works for you. Just stick with that, and we don't need so much. It was quite very refreshing, and seeing that the life in the Dharma. We can say this is good at the beginning. When we started, we can feel it, right? This is existential, feel of kind of happiness in our heart. Even a glimpse of it can change completely us. It's bring a happiness in the middle, and definitely even more happiness bringing us to the end. And Helen very embodied that, and it was quite inspiring to see.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to connect that to the last vow, or the last verse here, which is all of one's vows are completed. So she's somebody who's actually, you could say, completed many things. She helped build quite a few of the DRBA monasteries, really devoted her life to supporting Master Hua's Dharma. And you can see she made that her life purpose. She really, and so she's from that place of real deep dedication and joy, she was able to do so much. And I was really struck as one of the lay people with us asked her, how do you keep going all these years? You're like 85 now and you're still so energetic and so vigorous, because she would tell stories about when she was younger and she would drive up to CDDB from LA, middle of the night, and then be there like at 3, 4 a.m., do a whole day of work, help support the Dharma assemblies and just drive back. Right? That's the kind of vigor that she had. I was really struck by her. She's 85, Her response back was, I have more energy every day. I was like, what? She says, because I'm going to die soon. I only have so much more time to help the Dharma. I have only so much more time. So I have more energy every day. I was like, wow, that's quite something. So it's just...
and what's very striking, connecting to this, completing the vows, means serving to others. And she says, I try to be very sincere. Means I just doing not just for myself, I'm serving from others. And it's the place where she deeply pay attention and cultivate that. This aspect that I'm not doing just for myself. And we can feel the difference. And I think this is also the source of very deep happiness, when we can from open heart give support, and we just not doing for ourselves, even let go any benefits of it. I found that those people who are really dedicate their life to giving, they're just example of happy people, very deeply fulfilled and happy. And it's quite inspiring to have a chance to meet them and give a kind of reminding us that the happiness is not so far away from us, actually.
Yeah, okay, so I think that's time. Well, let's do the dedication of merit. I don't know if there's any announcements before that.
We keep going with our virtual Buddha hall. Tomorrow 5 a.m. we start with our morning ceremony. After that we have meditation 1 hour, some short reflections. We still continue reading the bowing journals and letters from the pilgrimage of Rabbi Heng Sure and Heng Chow, Marty, Verhoeven. We have 3 steps, 1 bow practice. We have a noon recitation, start at 12:30. And every Saturday is, like Jean Foch is saying, the big day, a busy day. Yeah. We have also Amitabha's assembly. We'll recite Amitabha's name, start at 2 p.m. And we have an evening ceremony, 6:30, and we have also tomorrow Monk Heng Sure's lecture on Avatamsaka Sutra. He will connect with us from Queensland, Australia. So it's a lot of places, or chances to create more space in our heart and minds, receive the Dharma and expand this space and fill out with happiness.
And actually, there's one event that I just remembered. We have Ajahn Suchito speaking for DRBU Spiritual Life on, I believe, April 10th from 9 to 10:15 a.m. This is mostly for DRBU, but if you're interested in joining, you can maybe go to the Berkeley Monastery or send an email to info@berkeleymonastery.org, and then we can send you the Zoom link if you want to join. So, okay. Then let's... Actually, Ajahn Suchito will be talking about unseating the inner tyrant, our internal judgmental mind. How do we let go of that?
He actually wrote the book.
He wrote a book about
short
that.
booklet you can find on the
internet.
On the internet, yeah.
Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Bow in respect to the three jewels. Okay, so wish everyone a good rest of the evening. Hope you can enjoy your empty space. And next week